These unconventional times require unconventional conversations. Listen in as your host, Richard Gordon, engages in one-on-one conversations with numerous leaders, elected officials, politicians, and others to learn what's happening in your state, on the Hill, and across America. Now, here's the host of Unconventional Times, Richard Gordon.
And you did so many big things. I mean, that's the thing that's really interesting. I know that you lifted India to, I think that we were the 12th leading trade partner when you left. I think they're now the 7th. But I know you worked on nuclear energy, you worked on technology transfers, you worked on space cooperation with them. You've done so many things. I know food security with Africa, disease. I mean, there's so many things you did. I'm going to tie these two issues together now. What happens now? You've developed this relationship with India between the United States and the continent, and then we keep hitting them with tariffs. We keep doing these things. Now, Prime Minister Modi and the president seem to have a good relationship.
They do.
What happens going forward here? What happens to all these things, Tim, that you put in place years ago to really grow? Now, I noticed just this morning, I think that India is our 4th largest trading partner, something like that. I mean, it's huge. Still have a trade deficit. But what happens now? How do we move forward with India? What's the relationship going to be like in the next few years?
So one of the most fascinating things, and I told President Obama this when he came to visit India with the First Lady, they were there in 2000. They came twice, and they were there right before the midterm elections, right during the midterm elections, Rich. And as you remember, the Democratic Party back in 2010 midterms got just shellacked, just annihilated. We
Completely.
lost the House, the Senate, everything. I was walking the president to the plane, and I said, "Mr. President, I know you probably have second thoughts about going home. We'd love to keep you here in this country a little longer." And he goes, "Yeah, we just got our butt kicked back home. Not going to be fun." And I said, "Well, let me give you a stat. We do polling, or, they do polling here in India. You have about a 73% popularity rating in India. You don't even have that in America. You might want to stay here and keep voting." Now, to America's credit, Rich, President Trump has a very high popularity rating in India as well. We have a great relationship with India. India respects our Democratic and our Republican presidents, and that helps an ambassador, like when I was there, to get things done. New strategic defense agreements, sensitive intel sharing agreements, new counterterrorism agreements, Indo-Pacific Ocean submarine and naval sharing agreements to counter the Chinese power and prowess in that area. What we want to be very careful of, Rich, and one of the reasons that President Obama shifted some of the focus to India and Asia was the power relationship in the world for the United States, strategically and geopolitically over the next 50 years, is going to be determined by partnerships. Who builds the bigger and better, more sustaining partnerships? Does the United States or does China? China's partnerships are Russia, North Korea, Iran, and some others. The United States, India, Europe, Canada, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, Indonesia, and the Philippines. We're bringing them back after they shifted toward China a few years ago. They're coming back more toward the U.S.
Is that sustainable under these circumstances?
I think it probably is. I mean, there are going to be people that are disappointed in President Trump and what he's doing on tariffs and, what he's saying in different parts of the world. But he was there from 2016 to 2020. He was gone. We had a replacement. President Trump is going to be gone in another 3.5 years. There'll be a new president then that will be very different. And I think the world understands, how the things shift and change, and there are cycles in American politics. Think about this. If India ever shifted to the Russia, China, North Korea axis, what that would mean for the US power balance in the world, that would be devastating. And so,
Well, explain that. What do you mean?
a 1.4 billion person country, the biggest democracy, not the oldest like we are, the biggest democracy in the world, in a strategic part of the world where they are right in the middle of the Indian Ocean and the Malacca Straits. That is one of the most strategically important places in the world. Now, with trade shifting to Asia, about 65% of all world trade goes through that Malacca Straits and through the Indian Ocean. And preserving the freedom of navigation, which is something the United States and India works on. China is building bases all around that area, trying to intimidate other countries, trying to push other countries around on fishing rights, mineral rights, gas rights. We are for freedom for these countries to be able to go anywhere they want in the Indo-Pacific Ocean and run their trade ships through there in an unencumbered and an unintimidating way. We're for freedom and liberty. The Chinese are out there coercing and pushing people around, Indonesia and the Philippines and Malaysia in particular, that come to us all the time and say, hey, US, can you Americans help us from China trying to ram our boats and pushing us out of fishing areas and pushing our commerce and our economy away from us by doing unfair trade deals. So we need to make those friendships in the world. We need to outthink, out-strategize, outsmart China in forming partnerships on different things, Rich. We can form partnerships like we have with the Quad, with the United States, Australia, India, and Japan, and work together on, development and education issues and intelligence sharing. We can work with other countries in that area, Indonesia, the Philippines, Vietnam, on other issues, digital trade and green energy issues. So you form different coalitions with different countries, you bring them together for their own prosperity and safety, and that creates the different coalitions around the world to help our economy, to help our middle class, to create more jobs, to create more peace and security. The Chinese are trying to do that all the time. And we need to be better about it. We need to be smarter about it. We need to be proactive about it. That's why India is so important.
With the United States being viewed a little bit as a unreliable trade partner, is this a moment for, with the United States being unreliable, is this a moment for India? Is this a moment for them to step up on the world stage? And how do they do that? And do they have the ability to do it?
Well, that's the key. They want to do it. Mr. Modi, who is kind of a right of center politician, has been saying for the last 3 elections, he's been elected now 3 times with an overwhelming majority of the vote. He's saying something similar to President Trump. He's saying manufacture, build in India. He doesn't particularly want to bring a lot of new product into his country and open up his markets. He wants to create jobs in India like China did over the last 40 years.
But he has a huge imbalance with China also, right? Isn't the
they're very it goes US and China, we go back and forth between being their largest trading partner. So India wants to play it both ways. They want China to be able to trade with, they want us to be able to trade with, they want to get access to our technology and our pharmaceuticals and our medical products, our defense products, and they want to trade with China and sell China all kinds of different agricultural products and products they export. So, they can play the game. India can play the game pretty well. But Modi is a very crafty, very smart businessman that, he's going to try to cut the best deal for India on these tariffs. And the United States has to be a tough trading partner with him. There has to be reciprocity. When President Obama would talk to me about trade, we kind of came up with this way of talking about trade, which is win-win. Win for America, win for India. When we would sell C-17s, one of the biggest cargo planes made in the United States of America, to India, it was a win-win. They would buy a product. Those are probably close to $1 billion, $800 million a piece. Those are American jobs. Those are hundreds and hundreds of American jobs created when they buy those. We get credit for that. And they have a piece of equipment that helps them recover from a tsunami or potentially for defense products. That's a win-win for both economies. If the Indians eventually, like the Chinese, try to steal our intellectual property rights or try to build the wings on that C-17 Rich, and then they're not only building the wings, they learn how to build the wings and the fuselage and the tail. They don't need to buy our product anymore.
Right.
And so that's what they eventually want to do. We don't want to give them all that. We want to keep making sure that our middle class and our blue collar people and our manufacturing stays healthy. It might not be 20% of our workforce, but we sure should be working to increase it, to try to make sure we're manufacturing things in America and that we don't let it hollow out like we almost did after NAFTA. One of the best votes I ever cast was against.
You vote against it.
I thought it would be terrible for Indiana, terrible for my steel workers, terrible for my auto workers, terrible for my farmers, and it was. And I'm very glad I voted against it, even though my friend President Clinton, he tried every which way to get me to vote for that, taking me to the White House several times, whining and dining me, and he's good at it. And I finally said to him, Mr. President, all due respect, I am a U.S. representative representing Indiana, not you, not Texas that's going to do well with NAFTA, not California that might do well with NAFTA. I'm representing Indiana. We are going to get hosed by this, and I'm not voting for it.
But you did vote for other other trade bills like GATT, like the Caribbean Basin.
And I thought GATT was fair, Rich. I thought GATT, it wasn't one country, it was many countries. It was a balanced way of looking at, okay, our Indiana farmers, we can't get into China very well, but GATT's going to open up markets for us in Europe and in South America. So, GATT was a multilateral trade deal with a lot of different moving parts and a lot of opportunities for our businesses, trade unions, farmers to get into new markets and to build the middle class. And I thought they were fair deals for Indiana.
You've brought up the 9/11 Commission before. What did you learn from it? What's applicable today? What do we need to be concerned about? The big lesson from that.
So I'll give you three big lessons. One, that things change, Rich, and you better change with the times. Prior to 2001, the United States was postured for the Soviet Union or a nation state attacking us. Planes, tanks, submarines, whatever the conventional means was. We had no idea about a cell of people, 19 people sneaking into the country and almost devastating our country and bringing the stock market down to collapse by crashing planes into the trade towers, the Pentagon, and almost the capital of the United States. We did not shift fast enough as a country and on our national security ideas and posture to be able to react to a threat of cells of terrorists around the world. We were equipped to prevent the Soviet army from coming into America, but not 19 people. So
is this an intelligence issue?
It is intelligence. It is Congress's fault. It was the White House's fault. It was our national security apparatus. It wasn't moving fast enough for the time to anticipate what future threats would look like. Lesson number one, change. Don't wait till it's too late. Two, bipartisanship is essential in America. We had 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans on the 9/11 Commission. We weren't sure we'd be able to work together. You never know. We worked, and those folks became some of my dearest friends in the world. We didn't always agree. We had some really tough arguments, occasionally, pretty vocal, fights back and forth. But ultimately, all 10 of us voted for the recommendations. And that's the way that you really change America, is Republicans and Democrats doing it. Because then when that happens, as you know, the next administration doesn't come in and change everything. When you have a bipartisan set of ideas that are passed into law, they stay in law. They are embraced, and you find ways to make sure that they work. Third lesson, our system works well passing laws. We proposed 40 new ways to transform our national security, creating some new agencies, getting better foreign service and foreign language speakers and intelligence sharing into our intel operations, trying to make sure that that we had a new Department of Homeland Security that worked to protect the homeland. We hadn't had that before with terrorists coming in. We were looking outwards. We passed 39 of those 40 recommendations into law to transform our country. And thank goodness we haven't been attacked like that since then. It's worked. And so with the 9/11 families who lost loved ones, they helped us do this, to work with the White House and the Congress to get these things passed into law. You don't, as a Blue Ribbon Commission, simply propose ideas and walk away. You make sure those ideas can be implemented and then executed into law, and they actually change things, and they protected America for the better. I'm very proud of that.
As you should be. Are you concerned now, though? I mean, we see generals being fired. We see people from the NSA being let go. There seems to be an attack on our intelligence community, on our national security community. Having lived through 9/11, having been in the commission, having been on the House Intelligence Committee, all the things you've done all these years, is this an issue? How should the Intelligence Committee, the intelligence community fit into an administration?
Well, I've served on the board of visitors at National Defense University, and for the last several years worked pretty closely with our military community. And before just overwhelming respect for our military, their sacrifices, what they do, where they go, how they achieve their mission, working closely with them over the last several years, that respect is even, deepened even more. I am worried about this, and I'll give you a specific instance that just happened a month and a half ago. The Joint Chiefs of Staff, 4-star General C.Q. Brown, who I knew, was fired. That's not a bad thing, but why? No reason was given, just fired. He was a Biden appointee, so he's fired. Now, Joint Chiefs of Staff, they're not seen as a Trump or a Biden appointment. They're seen as a military commander, and they usually serve out the rest of their term. They're not partisan. So he was fired for no reason. First mistake. Second, the president nominated a 3-star retired, not a 4-star, a 3-star. That's not done. You don't. The military has a chain of command where you go from 1, 2, 3 to 4-star. You have different positions you serve in, strategic command, maybe the Indo-Pacific. You learn about all the military, not just the military you're from. If you're Navy, you'll learn more about the Army and the Marines. So there's a step up process to earn that Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is the second most powerful position in our military to the Defense Secretary, right? Then you have the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They nominate a three-star retired guy who's not got the strategic experience, vaults over all these other qualified people that have been working their way up the chain of command. I got to say, Rich, people like General George Washington, people like General Ulysses Grant, people like General George Marshall, they got to be rolling in their graves saying, what is going on here? We have a strict in the military nonpartisanship, chain of command. You earn these positions by your experience and your merit and your quality. You don't get to upend everybody else because the president likes you. Or there was this rumor going around that this guy who he nominated wore a MAGA hat in when he greeted President Trump someplace in Iraq or something. No, the military has its way of doing things, and we respect that.
How does it affect our national security, though?
It greatly affects our national security. I mean, look at how it's affecting our national security. Let's look at two or three things. I mean, you've got a Secretary of Defense now who this is just incredible to me, having served on the Intelligence Committee, where every time I dealt with the U.S. secret that was at all sensitive, I had to walk into a skiff, get rid of my phone, no staff, no paper, no pencil, no notes, and be in this steel room that can't be eavesdropped on by the Russians or the Chinese and talk about something highly sensitive, like a pending military operation to hit the Houthis in Yemen. Our Secretary of Defense doesn't go into a skiff in a secure place to do this. He gets on a unsecured signal chat line, shares method, where, when, and why, which could have threatened the safety and the operation of this clandestine attack. Could have killed everybody in our American force that was doing this. That would be like, Rich, for your listeners, that would be like me saying to me, I call my local Wells Fargo bank. Let's say it's in South Bend, and I say, hey, next Monday, I'm coming in at 11 a.m. and I'm going to rob your bank. I'm going to not only rob your bank, I'm going to bring a handgun, a shotgun, and a grenade. Then not only am I going to tell you how I'm going to do it and what am I going to do it with, then I'm going to go into the basement and take all the jewelry and rubies and diamonds out of your vault, and then maybe I'll leave. And they're like, what? You're telling us ahead of time you're going to all do? That's what we did on this unsecured chat line, talking about how we were going to attack another country. That is a direct risk to our national security. One more example, Rich. The Russian-Ukraine war. Just a tragic situation going on every day now. President Trump said he would solve it in 24 hours. I wish he could. I think the war needs to end. It needs to end on sovereign terms for both countries. It needs to end on sustainable terms. It needs to end on peacekeepers coming in that both countries agree to. All kinds of things need to be worked out. Instead of ending this war in 24 hours, as the president has done, Russia now is gleefully laughing at us every day because they're bombing Ukraine, because the Trump administration can't get them to the table to even get a ceasefire going. They're bombing Ukraine every single day. Schoolyards, kids, cities, towns, all over the place, because Putin knows he can keep getting an advantage. And so this is a military quagmire. It's a diplomatic disaster, and that threatens our national security. So, you're seeing this in the leadership at the Defense Department over and over and over again.
Are they unqualified people? Are they inept? Are they the wrong people in the wrong jobs? I mean, I mean, Biden's evacuation of Afghanistan wasn't a thing of beauty either. I mean,
That's a kind way to say it. It was something that was horrific to watch on
yeah,
TV.
it's
It broke
painful.
my heart to see it. American soldiers, civilians got killed. You saw all the people running after the planes evacuating down the runway. It was absolutely heart wrenching to watch that. And he made a mistake, and he should have said, it was the right decision to get out, and I did it the wrong way, and I made a mistake. And I wish Vice President Harris would have said, when I'm asked, what do I agree or disagree with Biden on? I'm going to say I disagree with Biden about the way he got Afghanistan. Now, having said that, President Trump once again said, I'll get us out of Afghanistan in 2016 in 24 hours. It's easy. He never did. 4 years later, we were still there. Biden did it. He did it in such an awkward and embarrassing way. And, most Americans will probably never forgive him for it. I think we lost 13 American soldiers during that, which is absolutely devastating to our families. Yeah, he made a mistake. And
Right.
we will make mistakes on the military side. Back to your question about these folks that the president has picked at DOD, uh, I think it's been bad and getting worse about the caliber of people there. He doesn't pick a defense expert to be the Secretary of Defense. He picks a TV communication expert. I, you know, and here coming from somebody, Rich, I wish this administration well. As an American, I want them to succeed. I want them to get out, to be successful in getting the Ukraine war resolved. I want the stock market to go up for my kids and their 401ks as they work now. I want America to do better in the world, but I think this president is taking us down the wrong path. He got elected to address the economy, to help build more jobs, to help us grow our jobs in the middle class and our stock market, and he's not doing that.
If you have a few more minutes, I'd love to ask you just a couple more things.
Yeah, and I hope you'll ask me about politics in America at this point too.
Okay, we could do that. Let me start with asking you about Congress, because
Okay.
Congress has changed quite a bit since 2002 when you left. Um, I'd like to understand your perspective. How has it changed? And is it changed forever? Is there a way that we could go back? Look, when I talk to older politicians, much older than us, people who
Be
had been there
careful.
ages, ages ago, they talk about things in a bipartisan way. You talked about things in a bipartisan way. Look, you were one of the lead sponsors of Leave No Child Behind, George Bush's signature education legislation of his whole term. You were much more of a, I'll say a dirty word, moderate, right? And we're going to
Uh-oh.
be
Now,
off the.
now people are going to tune out. That's it now,
That's
Rich.
it. But
They've
you
given
were
up on us.
you were willing to work with people of all parties, all thoughts, whatever, passed some major legislation, did amazing things for education, right? Amazing things for Head Start and other things. Where are we in Congress? Why are we here? How do we get it back?
So you mentioned the term moderate, and moderates are associated with compromise, another word that people today think, well, if I don't get 100% of what I want, you guys are wishy washy. You don't stand for principle. I don't want anything to do with you. Moderates to me, Rich, moderate means maybe not a hero in our lexicons of, who you are, attracted to with the greatest charisma in the world. Moderates are the heroes of democracy. They are the people that make compromise work. They are the glue of our system to have our system work. Benjamin Franklin used to talk about during, the constitutional debate. Everybody had these crazy ideas of what our government would look like. A monarch, somebody who could serve forever, three presidents, not one. Some crazy ideas, branches of government, that had 10-year terms, not 2 years or 6 years like we have today in the House and the Senate. And Benjamin Franklin stands up and he says, you know what? We all need to sit down and think for a moment. Think about the craftsman that builds a chair and shaves that joint a little bit more, compromises it so that it can fit in that opening of the top of the chair and it lasts forever as a secure joint. Takes a little bit of shaving. And he said, we all have to shave a little bit here today to get this Constitution passed. And it's the greatest document in the history of the world because people can have the fortitude and the guts to say, I'm not going to get everything. I don't get everything in my marriage. Every time I have an argument with Sally, I don't always win, and that's okay. That's
You
the
get
way
40%, you're doing well.
Yeah, exactly. And so in government, we're in this social media technology era where people get online and they think, hey, it's cool to say, if you don't get 100%, tell the other side they're evil, they're wrong, they don't know what they're talking about. And that gets dangerous in a democracy, quite frankly. Now, how things changed. I think one of the biggest problems today is money dominating our politics. Somebody like a Elon Musk or George Soros, let's pick one on both sides, Democrat and Republican. Our founding fathers had no idea that somebody like a Musk would accumulate tens of billions of dollars, own a media company that is one of the most powerful media companies X in our society. Back in those days, you had Federalist newspapers and you had agrarian newspapers representing both parties. And, you didn't have a dominant aristocracy and one rich person doing everything. Things were even, they were spread out. Today, the way money dominates politics, Rich, he puts $270 million into the president's campaign. And then he can go up to Congress and say, if you don't do what I want you to do, I will put $10 million into a campaign and beat you in a primary. And you know what? He can.
Yeah.
And that intimidates some of these poor members of Congress. They don't stand up for their Article 1, Section 1 constitutional rights to insist that Congress has a say in things. And it just has money buying our political system. Whether it's a rich Republican or a rich Democrat, there should be limits on speech as there are limits on money in politics. And we can't let money create a dollar democracy and an economic caste system here, where a lot of us think if you've got money, $200, $300 million, you can speak a lot louder than I can. You can dominate my vote and buy access and buy seats. That shouldn't be the case. We've got to do things, whether it's a constitutional amendment, whether it's overturning Citizens United, we have got to do something about the influence of money in politics.
So could a Tim Roemer, or your father-in-law who sadly just left us not too long ago.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that.
Senator, J. Bennett Johnson. There hasn't been a Democratic senator in Louisiana, where he was from, in quite some time. There hasn't been a Democratic congressman in the 3rd District of Indiana in quite some time. Can the Tim Roemers win? Can the Bennett Johnsons of the world win? How do we get those type of people back into our system? I mean, look, you look at some of the people, Governor and Senator Evan Bayh. You look at Governor Huntsman. You look at, some of the George Romney. You look at some of these people who were in the system and were much more interested in how do we get things done. I mean, what Governor Bayh used to do in Indiana, which was fascinating, I thought, was to say, okay, we can agree on 60% of the stuff. Let's pass it. And then let's argue on the 20 on the left and 20 on the right, and we'll see where that goes. But we got something done. How do we get the Johnsons, the Roemers, the Bays, the Hunts? We're losing them. And if you look at the people who are retiring from the Senate, you're losing them again in the Democratic Party. What do we need to do as a country to pull both sides, regardless of what party you are, pull it closer to the center?
It's such an important democracy question. And whenever I go to Notre Dame or IU or Purdue, whenever I go to a college campus, I'm always telling the college students, this is your time. You young people need to run because we need you desperately. It's like, when the stock market goes down, that's a great time to buy, right? Because it's cheaper. You don't buy the stock market when it's way up here. You buy it down here, hoping and knowing in our history that it's going to go up and you're going to make money on that investment. Same as in our political system. We are in the abyss right now. Both parties are, Rich. The Democrats are seeking to replace President Biden. The Republicans, whether they know it or not, are going to be seeking to replace President Trump. There's going to be an open opportunity in 2028. There are all kinds of opportunities for these younger people. And I mean younger, 50 and younger. Run for office in your local community on the school board. Lots of important decisions being made on access to literature these days and the quality of our schools and getting reading and math scores up. Lots of important decisions made in our state legislature these days on how to allocate budgets fairly and invest in America and help our middle class do better. Governors, it doesn't have to be running for president. So I'm always telling these 20 and 25-year-olds when I see them on campus, this is your moment. People are tired of this generation running things. They're tired of the senators and the congresswomen and men. You have an opportunity to make a difference for your country, come up with new ideas, get involved at the local level or the state level, the national level. You're going to have a shot at this. And one of the ways to do it, too, is to get involved in issues that you really care about. It could be money in politics. It could be, an environmental issue. It could be an issue of justice. So those are opportunities. If you don't want to run and be the candidate, help somebody run, be part of a campaign and a coalition and a process. There are great opportunities out there right now to help build these parties on both sides of the aisles and get people in there with principle, with ethics, that want to serve their community and will put country before party when they want to do the right thing.
I have so many other questions I want to ask you, but that was so good. I'm going to end it there. So I, I have to thank you so much. You've been incredibly generous with your time. It's look, I just enjoy sitting and chatting with you, as you know I always do. So we will
You're
continue.
a good friend, Rich, and I appreciate it. I appreciate your very eloquent and gracious words when my father-in-law passed just recently. And it's, friendships that make a difference in people's lives when they're going through tough times. And I know you've gone through some of those tough times in your life, losing parents and close people. And it leaves a little bit of a hole in your soul. And only people around you that show, concern and care and love, they're there to help you replace that loved one that you've lost. So I appreciate your friendship.
Well, of course, and I think we all need a little bit more of that going forward. And as you and I have talked, offline, we keep people alive by talking about them and remembering the wonderful things and the people we are because of them. And
Yeah.
that's what's so important. Tim, can't thank you enough. Tim Roemer, stay unconventional.
Thank you. Pleasure being with you and fun as always.
Thank you. And for you folks listening, remember you can also watch us on YouTube. So really interesting discussion with Congressman, Ambassador, dear friend Tim Roemer. There's a lot going on in the world. And I think if you take one thing away from today's show, no matter what it is, no matter what party you're in, no matter what political view you have, do something. Get involved, volunteer. It doesn't matter what it is. People ask me all the time, what should I do? It doesn't matter. If you believe in it and you can make a difference in other people's lives, go do it. Listen, I look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks for your time today. Richard Gordon, Unconventional Times. We'll see each other again soon.
You've been listening to Unconventional Times with your host, Richard Gordon. Check out all of the episodes of Unconventional Times on Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. To learn more about Richard Gordon and all of his unconventional conversations, head on over to unconventionaltimes.com. Thanks for listening.